Buenos días. Desde mediados de los años 80, el artista francés Xavier Veilhan, nacido en 1963, residente en París, ha creado un aclamado grupo de obras definido tanto por sus intereses dentro del lenguaje de la modernidad, velocidad, movimiento, vida urbana, etc., así como de la escultura clásica, a la cual le ha dado su propia interpretación contemporánea. Xavier utiliza una amplia gama de materiales y técnicas para reproducir retratos y paisajes tridimensionales, bestiarios y arquitecturas que siempre oscilan entre lo familiar y lo extraordinario. Sus exhibiciones e intervenciones in situ en ciudades, jardines y casas cuestionan nuestra percepción, creando la evolución de un espacio ambulatorio, dentro del cual la audiencia se convierte en un participante activo. Esas estéticas revelan un continuum de forma, contorno, elasticidad y dinámica que invitan a que el espectador haga una nueva lectura del espacio, creando a su vez un gran repertorio de signos, el teatro de una sociedad. A continuación, una pequeña proyección de un video y después la plática de Xavier.
Gracias. So we will now look at a short version of a longer movie, a documentary on a project that I've done called Architectone. And then we will have a small discussion with Daniel and talk with you if you have any questions. So, okay, we can.
Audio output. No lo tiene. Ah, es
après avoir fait l'expédition à Versailles, je me suis posé la question de savoir quels étaient les endroits qui étaient attrayants. Et avec toujours ce paradoxe à la base que les endroits les plus beaux sont aussi les endroits les plus difficiles. La raison pour laquelle je m'intéresse à ces maisons modernistes, c'est j'avais justement visité des maisons et puis en fait en les voyant, je me suis rendu compte. L'origine des pièces, j'ai lu pas mal de choses, j'ai vu des films, etc. Enfin, une sorte de réseau, comme un filet autour de ça qu'on resserre. Et après ça, ce à quoi je me suis appliqué, c'est surtout à ce que les œuvres soient pas trop académiques, qu'il y ait une dimension narrative dedans, une dimension presque anecdotique. C'est ça qui est aussi intéressant, c'est que, et là je suis revenu à quelque chose d'un petit peu les pieds sur terre et les mains dans le cambouis, quoi, qui était quelque chose auquel j'aspirais. Chaque fois, une exposition, c'est un instantané, c'est-à-dire on lance quelque chose et puis il y a une date, et puis il y a une trajectoire. C'est aussi un moment où on arrête, et puis on a un instantané à ce moment-là. Et j'aime bien cette idée-là parce qu'il y a une sorte de légèreté là-dedans.
It's not ink.
No, it's not ink. They call it black veil, which I like because it matches to my name.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because there's not enough water. It's not filling. I think the photos are really I think the photos.
So the idea is that it will turn to kind of mirror.
Yeah.
And it will mirror the house, and then we fill the house with white smoke, and it will be like completely like opaque, turning opaque. I think it's time to start.
Cinematic, right? And
Yeah.
so we're watching it before the kind of the smoke came on. It's like watching a deep space, and now it's become like a more flat screen.
It will be completely flat.
La soirée s'est transformée d'elle-même en quelque chose, pour quelqu'un comme moi qui veut contrôler au maximum ce que je fais au niveau professionnel, c'était à la fois un échec total et un succès absolu parce que ça m'échappait complètement, mais ce qui se passait était beaucoup mieux que tout ce que j'avais attendu. Wait, stop.
Là, c'est pas mal, ouais.
I want to set it the same position as the house.
Подожди, сейчас они несколько кадров сделают.
Yes. Ok, là, pour qu'il soit droit. Tu vois comme ça. Il était comme ça, ouais. Et j'ai enlevé juste le gros tronc. Faire une performance dans un lieu comme ça, c'était donner une dynamique aussi aux choses figées, enfin cet objet patrimonial qui est une maison qui a peu changé. Je pensais intervenir à l'intérieur au départ. Et puis finalement, c'était tellement un sanctuaire à l'intérieur que j'ai préféré me cantonner au jardin et faire une sorte de performance. Mais ce qu'il y a de drôle, c'est que le brasero est toujours là-bas, et à la fin de la soirée qu'on a passé à manger des trucs grillés sur ce brasero et à boire pas mal de vodka, elle a commencé à raconter des histoires sur son père, sur son grand-père, et il y avait quelque chose de nouveau qui se passait, comme réchauffé par la combustion des déchets du jardin. So that's about 3 years of a project that we've done called Architectone. And after that, I went to
I start to travel to Brazil and discover some, and to Mexico, and discover some more Latin modern architecture, including the Espacio Escultórico. And Daniel, you're here because you specialize also in Matthias Goeritz. And what I was interested with is the junction of a certain taste in color, in shape, also the relation to native culture in Mexico, and the development of modernity. So maybe you can tell us and tell me more about this group of people that how it happens that the Espacio Escultórico has been decided, and for example, I would be interested to know who founded that and who decided for that. And so, the Espacio Escultórico, for people that are not familiar with it, is on the UNAM, the university, which is a huge area of Mexico, and including a lot of very interesting buildings, and also very interesting public sculpture that happened in the very early 80s.
El Espacio Escultórico was a project orchestrated by Goeritz that gathered a lot of other artists. Some of them were his students at one point. Well, they were like Manuel Felgueres, Federico Silva, Helen Escobedo, Jersúa, Sebastián, and Federico Silva. I don't know if I'm repeating names, but I hope not.
And some of them are still living?
Yes. Well, Federico Silva is still living. I guess he should be like 97, 98, but he's still living. Felgueres is still alive. Jersúa, who was, I think, like the youngest, along with Sebastián, is also alive. Helen Escobedo has died, and Goeritz has died, I think. I think that those two are the only ones that are dead. And Goeritz always praised like collective work in order to get rid of authorship. But the truth is, like, most of his collaborative projects have always given rise to these polemics about authorship, like Las Torres de Satélite with Barragán, and in this case, like in El Espacio Escultórico, there are several artists there that claim that that idea was like his idea.
And so I came first time to Mexico 1.5 years ago, and I got to the UNAM site, and it was quite funny because I forgot it was closed because it was the 1st of May, and it was the last day I could see it. So I have to say that I jumped the gate and got inside, and so I was on my own in this incredible site, and I had the idea to kind of find a way to refresh the site with an intervention. So my idea is to cover some of the blocks, or maybe all the blocks, with colored tarp, so fabric. And I made a sketch for that. And then after that, I discovered that Helen Escobedo made this beautiful drawing in color. So do you know what was the idea behind Helen Escobedo's design, or why she done that?
Helen Escobedo used to make a lot of speculative monuments. So, for example, she made like maquettes of some monuments, even like absurd monuments, like the monument to the cigarette, and then made collages of public spaces with these like huge sculptures in the shape of a cigarette or that kind of stuff. So I think this take on the espacio escultórico is one of these like between absurd and humorous projects. In this case, like an intervention in which she imagined, the drawing is called like the espacio escultórico in Technicolor. So I think it's more about that, like this. I think she never attempted to make like a final project out of it. It was more like a speculation and something humorous on the espacio escultórico.
And so you invite me to make this lecture, but also I've been invited to take part to the art fair with a solo presentation with my gallery Andrzej Szybczenko from Stockholm. And so I got here a month ago, and I worked on small pieces, a little bit like the same kind of the ones that you can see here. That this is a view of my studio in Paris, and where we're working with a team, with Violetta, and with a team of about 10 people in the studio. So it's more like a agency for architecture or something like that in the structure of the studio. But I need some time to get back to the shop and work actually on the pieces. And so I started to work on pieces that I made myself during this project Architecton. You saw the film of. The movie of, and now I was started to work with tools that are very simple because I couldn't use power tools in the studio because it was too noisy, and so just to explain that I went back to some very basic things, basic shapes that are close to the Architecton designed by Malevich in the early 20s. And these developments I keep on doing now with those pieces that are shown at the gallery, and all those pieces are shown in a kind of a replica of a dummy of those monoliths, which are actually not monolith because they are hollow, but they look like monolith. That are the 64 element of the Spazio Scultorico. So for me, it's the presentation here is also about the idea that I know that you've been studying that in particular, but the migration of a certain spirit around the world, and how the spirit of modernity of Barragan meeting Le Corbusier and main modernist architect led to a certain new type of modernism, which is very specific for Mexico or Latin America, like Lina Bobardi, who came from Italy to Brazil. And so that's why I'm very interested in Matthias Goeritz, because he was an art historian, but also an artist and a teacher, and the way that he worked is a representation of the merge between a certain idea of modernism rooted in the Bauhaus, for example, and the opening to the outside, for example, and the open air, the idea of open air, which is stronger here just because of the climate and a certain tradition. So, and so my concern is how, for example, they use the lava field in front of the Spazio Scultorico is very interesting to me, because it's all the sculpture is confronted to the actual landscape, and I went there yesterday and again to check a few things, and I was very amazed with the quality of the experience of just walking around this area and enjoying not only the pieces but also a kind of a walk, and which is also very interesting because here there is no limit in no legal limits. So it's kind of you couldn't do that in America, in Northern America, for example, like the piece by Goeritz, which looked like a pyramid that you could climb on, for example. And so I'm interested in this environment that is not only the climate and not only the legal environment, but the combination of all this that is leading to those typical shape. And you have here in Mexico something very unique in the world, which is this incredible field of sculpture. So, but no, maybe I don't know. Yeah, if we want to, we can turn it into a small discussion if anybody has questions, or we can keep on talking together. Is there any question on that? Okay.
I want to, in the video that you show, we had the opportunity to see how you engage with different examples of architecture, like canonic architecture, and you revise formal issues, historical issues, and even make reference to the authors in a play that is very interesting between like pure abstraction and also figuration, for example. You mentioned that you wanted to, or made this a sketch about covering some of the elements with colors, which I think is a very nice idea, but what else do you see like in the landscape, or which other things do you think you could do, or do you imagine, or what incites you, like all this landscape with these other sculptures and elements, natural elements and stuff?
Well, I think it could be like just integrating new type of plants, for example, or new species. But the problem with the Spazio Sculturico is that what I'm interested in is because of the datation of this. It's almost linked to the time that I was turning to be an artist, or beginning of the 80s. I start to be interested in art, and so it's belonged to history, but it's also very contemporary. And so I'm interested in the environment, but the environment is changing, and we also have to talk about this new building that is built there, and that is unfortunately completely changing the skyline. I mean the landscape with this building popping up. So there is a white building on the side that is brand new, and that will be inaugurated soon. And that is really a problem visually for the space, because it's so. When you're in the Spazio Sculturico, you can only see the pieces and the horizon line with the beautiful mountains, and this altered really the environment. So, but it's pointing that the environment is changing, people are changing. For example, a few plants are growing on the concrete blocks. It's very interesting to see how the nature is eating back those sculptures. So my idea is to play with this original idea, like a sketch. That's why I want to with a formal intervention, bring it back to something that is more linked to the original concept, like a thought or even a drawing, and to try to make it slick and more accurate. So, and to give a certain idea of a link to the original concept. So, but there is many ways that you could interact, and I'm also interested in the fact that organized a lot of parties and musical intervention in the early 80s, and also that people can just walk and sit there, and it's another relation to art, because it's not like when you're in a show and you're walking from one piece to another and you look at them. It's more an experience that you are, it's like being in a building, but here it's being in a garden, and so it's more living with the art than looking at it only.
No sé si alguien guste preguntar algo, hacer un comentario.
We are expecting your job in Espacio Escultórico, and it's very interesting, all your things, your thesis. But I want to know if you have some artists, your reference in your formation.
I first got to art with artists that when I was a kid, like Andy Warhol or Vasarely, or people that were outside of the field of only contemporary art at the time, but they were reaching a broader audience. I wasn't specialized in that, so I got in touch with those artists as a kid, and it was interesting to me. But then, when I first start to study art, my big shock, my big encounter was with minimal art and with conceptual art. And actually my own practice is a merge between pop, conceptual and minimal. That's why there is some figurative and non-figurative. But it's always based on an idea that there is no limit between figurative art and conceptual art or abstract. There is no limit between the things that are very elaborate technically and very simple, for example. And art is always, to me, a way to escape the language, which is today not a very good example, doing a lecture, but it's a way to skip the language. So you can do with art things that the language can't reach. And for example, the movie you saw all the music is made by Nicolas Godin, one of the two members from Air. And also there is a strong relation to music, because the music is like what visual art can't reach in terms of emotion. So I'm very interested in combining, which is a very 70s idea also, and also like a Black Mountain College or many people at the time, or even the Bauhaus earlier, to combine different fields in art to achieve a stronger emotional relation to the environment.
¿Algo más? Well, just to finish, I would like to say that also like this idea of integration of the arts, it was also very important for Gerrit, and he always tried to, although he was not able to do it in all occasions, but to integrate at one point like dance and music to his architecture and sculptural projects. So, well, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your work and your next project here in Mexico, which is great. Y a todos ustedes, muchas gracias por venir, gracias a la gente de la UNAM por el interés, y bueno, a los demás también, muchas gracias.
Gracias.